Well, good evening, everyone. It is Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, and I will call this meeting to order. Ms. Karen, in Dottie's stead, would you please conduct a roll call so that we can ascertain a quorum?
Absolutely. Chair Molina,
Here.
Vice Chair Barrera,
Here.
Heather Anderson,
Here.
Dottie McKinney is not here, and Aaron Hamilton is not yet here. We have a quorum.
We have a quorum. Very well. And if you would mind sharing your flag screen. I am at Explore Academy right now. I'm at the school. I don't see a flag in this room, but so there we go. So let us conduct the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Okay. So that's item number one. Item number two is public comment regarding anything that is on the agenda. If anybody has any comments with regards to what's on the agenda this evening, you are certainly welcome to chime in.
And if you are, please raise your digital hand or add a comment, your name into the chat so that we can call you for public comment if so interested.
I see no interest in public comment at the moment.
Looks that way.
Very good. Then I move to approve this evening's current agenda as published on our website. If I can have a second, please.
A second.
Thanks, Martha. Any discussion with regards to tonight's agenda? I do have one thing I'm a little upset about, I guess, is there's no learning celebration tonight. So I'll get over it. I will get over it. Otherwise, I think the agenda looks just fine. Any further discussion? Well, then, Karen, I guess, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve this evening's agenda as posted on our website?
Absolutely. Vice Chair Barrera,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
and Chair Molina.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-0.
Excellent. And like that, we're on item number 4, and that is the approval of our last meeting minutes. If I could make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 14th, 2025. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thanks, Heather. All right. Hopefully everybody had an opportunity at least to give them a quick look from last month. I did give them a quick look, and I couldn't find anything. That's where I missed John Garlitz, because he almost always found something. But I didn't see anything that was omitted that shouldn't have been, or a typographical error. We even got Jake's name right.
Would you like a roll call vote on that, Chair?
Yes, let's do a roll call vote to approve the meeting minutes from our January 14th, 2025 meeting, please.
Okay, I'll start with Heather Anderson.
Aye.
Chair Molina.
Aye.
And Vice Chair Barrera.
Aye.
Minutes approved 3-0.
Outstanding. Yes, indeed. Outstanding. I stepped all over you there, Karen. I apologize. We are ready for our Finance Committee and reports, so we can promote Ms. Rarick to the panel.
Yes, there she comes.
Hey everyone.
Hey, Chile. How's it going?
Good. Chile was amazing. Everyone should go to Chile. It's great.
I bet it was.
Yes. We saw volcanoes and hiked and did the thing where you go from tree to tree. What is that called?
Zip lining?
Zip lining. That's what we did. It was a lot of fun.
All right. Woo-hoo.
All right. Well, we will get started here on the financials. So the first thing we have to review is your check register. Nothing really out of the ordinary, but let me know if you all have any questions. Okay. As far as the bank reconciliation goes, so this will probably be the last month that we see a increase in our bank account, because we did get the adjustment to our SEG today, or in February. So in February, we're going to start seeing the state funding go down, and we'll talk about that a little bit when we look at the forecast. Any questions on the bank reconciliation?
What's the $236 void? Was that just an old outstanding check or what?
Yes, and usually I didn't do this bank rec. Usually I attach it. I'll send it to the board afterwards, but yeah,
Okay.
it's a old check.
I assumed it was.
Yeah. Next we have the bar. So this is we can call it a baby bar, little bar, for $467. It's just a small increase to your current Carl Perkins Award, and we put teachers on this that specialize usually in STEM, but it's very specific pot of funding, and we just got a small increase in our allocation. And as far as the presentation goes, do you want to vote on those and then do the presentation?
Sure. I move to approve our financials for the month ending January 31st, 2025. I'll do the bar separately.
I'll second.
Thank you, Miss Martha. Any further discussion or questions for Katie with regards to the budget or the check register? Very good. Then Miss Karen, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve
Sure.
our financials for the month ending January 31st, 2025?
Absolutely. Vice Chair Barrera,
Aye.
Chair Molina,
Aye.
and Heather Anderson.
Aye.
Motion passes.
And then I move to approve the bar ending in 0026I.
I'll second.
Thank you, ma'am. Any questions regarding that little itty bitty adjustment to that Carl Perkins adjustment? Well, then, very good. Ms. Karen, would you please conduct a roll call vote to approve the budget adjustment request ending in 0026-I?
Chair Molina,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Barrera.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All righty. Let's take a peek at the forecast.
All right, so we didn't have much movement. We did make a few adjustments on the expense side, mostly for some special education expenses, salaries, adjustments to different liabilities, such as medical, that Jake and I talked through earlier this month. At the end of the day, we're not going to make part of the bond covenant, which is to have 45 days of cash on hand. So because of that, we are going to spend funds as needed, not just spend them all. But if there's something that's truly needed, like these special ed expenses, then we're going to allocate some funds to them. But we're still around 600,000. That is still what we're focusing on to try to hit for the end of the year to help build back that reserve. And we made an adjustment. So I was $7,000 off in your adjustment to your state funding. So we're pretty close. So that's the only adjustment now that we have the official number from PED on what your state funding will be. And this is just fees from kids for food or other materials went up. Overall, the cash flow, I mean, we stay above zero. So overall it looks good. June, it goes down because we do have that double payroll, but you can see our days of cash on hand when we calculate it. Even now we're not hitting 45 days. So that's something we would need to work on next year as we think about the bond covenant and or if we're going to refinance it. Here is the cash flow and what it looks like. Again, this large impact. We mostly see this going down because of the 40th day adjustment, and also the June payroll. So we still should try to identify savings as we can. I know Jake is focusing on only rehiring positions that are needed. We will be doing the audit report in March. And budgeting will happen. It's a long session. So probably April, or for you all, because you have such an early board meeting, probably May. And then the last thing is we did talk last time about picking a procurement item and going through it. And so we picked,
Yes.
sorry. Oh, so we picked Brooke Molina. So this is the purchase order for that vendor. She is a social worker. And so you, in the packet, you can see the invoices that go with that purchase order. The purchase order number is usually on top, if not in the detail of the invoice. And then also you can see the invoice amount and the approval, and the fact that, you know, the approvals are all happening also, and how it was paid, ACH or check, or when it was estimated to be delivered. And so there were 4 invoices that we have paid to this vendor thus far for the year, but they do not exceed the 15,000 that is sitting on the purchase order.
Currently, does that purchase order have enough room on it to finish the balance of the school year, or will there be a change order?
It should have enough because I didn't do the math, but right now I think we're at 6 or 7,000, and we're more than halfway done. So
Good. Okay. Outstanding. And just to be clear, I share Miss Brooke Molina's last name, but I do not know Miss Brooke Molina at all. So no conflict of interest or anything like that, which is why I chose or asked to have this one presented, was just to keep everything on the up and up. So maybe someday I'll get to bump into the lady, but I don't know her.
Yep.
So
So any questions on anything I have presented?
not from me. Martha, Heather?
Yeah,
Yes, Miss
oh,
Martha,
okay.
shoot.
Okay, I was just gonna ask, I mean, Jake or Katie, how likely is it that we'd be able to figure out the savings or identify ways to meet the bond covenant? Is it highly unlikely, or is it, you know, it's kind of 50-50?
It is highly unlikely,
Okay,
given the fact that the bond covenant states 45 days of cash on hand. And even with $1.7 million in the bank, we're at 25. So our budget is just so large. We have so many expenses. Like we need to have like 3 million-ish in the bank to hit that bond covenant.
so then our next steps would just be to, I mean, it's out of the plan for this year, but for next year, it's still possible to correct that, or to.
So next year, the plan is that we're going to, so the days of cash on hand is an odd thing to have in a bond covenant. And whenever, I think it was the person who did this bond deal that was written in it. So our covenant is actually very, very conservative. And so what we want to do is next November is we want to refinance, and we want to redo the covenant so that it's more in line with what you see in other bond deals. And so that's something that we're going to start working on next November. And so hopefully we won't be held to days of cash on hand. We'll just be held to the 1.2 coverage ratio, which means you have to meet all of the rent, and then you'd have to have enough. Essentially, you have to have 20% of your rent expense as your like net operating. And so that we could get to this year. That is what that $600,000 number is. but we can't get to the 45 days of cash on hand. So we're hopefully when we refinance, we're going to get rid of the days of cash on hand requirement and just stick to the 1.2 coverage ratio.
Okay, thanks for explaining that.
Yeah, that was helpful because I was going to ask if I could ask a question because I've heard repeatedly about that 1.2 ratio, and that if you at least at 1.0, you're kind of good, like in that range between the 1.0 and 1.2. And I
Yeah.
didn't know how this relates to that because, yeah, so that was very helpful. Thank you, Katie.
Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, it's both for us. So that's why we just decided, since we're not going to hit it, should spend the money on special ed because that's, it's definitely needed. So.
I'll just, if that's okay to enter into the public
Oh,
note,
yeah.
I'll use a Goodfellas reference. Of that scene where he's shaving the garlic with the razor blade. That's kind of how we've been handling expenses on the school side. Like anything where we can say, well, there's a week that we can save here, or we can cut a percentage out there. We've been trying slowly to do that. And so it looks like little shavings off of a piece of garlic with a razor blade at times, because it's not much, right? But it's, when we think about decisions that we made around increasing someone's salary a little bit in one spot and then not having replaced a little bit in a different, in the grand scheme of things, it doesn't save us a lot, but the intent is to slowly whittle away at some of those things where I feel like we could. And I have some ideas that I'll present during my report out tonight of something that I would like to look at for next year as well, just to present to the board as here are some things I think that we could do or some steps we could take in preparation for next year so that as we're building our budget in the spring, it does get us closer to what you're looking for.
And Katie, excuse me, Aaron Hamilton has just joined us, so I'm going to promote him to panel and note that he arrived at 5:50.
Thank you.
Katie, also on what that means though is because the foundation for Albuquerque is still a component unit of the school, there will be an audit finding that's a repeat finding. That's the ramification, right?
So because the Explore Foundation, or the foundation that is currently supporting Explore Albuquerque, is going to start supporting another school here pretty soon in February or March, then they actually cannot become a component unit of your audit anymore. So that finding will also go away as soon as that happens.
Thank you.
Yep.
Welcome, Aaron.
Yes, welcome, sir.
Hello. It seems like I missed the audit findings, which is like my favorite thing ever.
Oh,
So
isn't it?
Oh,
It's
you
not
didn't.
mine.
Next
We didn't
month.
discuss
Next
them.
month.
We didn't discuss audit findings for the last year. I was just asking about if we don't meet bond covenant, if it would be a finding for the school. But given that the foundation is not a component unit of the school, it will not be a finding, or will not be a component unit of the school for the next audit. It will not be a repeat or another finding. So good news, we didn't really talk about, well, bad news, I guess. We didn't really talk about audit findings yet. They're not published yet, but that's all we were talking about was whether this not meeting bond covenant would actually be a finding for the school is what I was asking.
Yeah,
And it will
gotcha.
not.
Okay. I came in right as it was like audit finding. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
I missed I missed my meeting. Oh man.
No, the
No,
exciting meeting is next month, hopefully.
Next
I mean, I hope it's released by March.
it might not be till you meet so early in the month. It might be not till April that we can actually discuss it unless you want a special meeting.
Last year it was released on Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
So
Oh, really?
Yeah, we discussed it
Sweet.
in March of last year too, if memory serves.
Yeah. But
So-
it
So
depends.
Aaron, you didn't miss your opportunity for the
That's right.
audit
We saved the
discussion.
best for you, Aaron. All right. Item number 6, we are going to reluctantly have to skip and postpone it to next month. And if anybody's curious as to why, is a ton of energy was invested over the last couple of weeks in preparation for the PED Charter School Division visit. That was this Monday and today. And Heather and I got to participate in that yesterday from 12:30 to 1:30. And I think there's a section later on where we get to talk about it, but I'll just take the moment right now. It was a lovely visit. We had 2 people interview us. One's a contractor and the other one works for CSD. And their questions were appropriate. I think we answered them well. I think it's always great to have when we have a board member who's also a parent there. That was awesome. In years past, it was like Dottie and me. Neither one of us have students there, but I love it when a parent can make it. And Heather certainly filled the bill there. But their questions were appropriate. They were very, very curious about ELS, LLC. So we did our very best to explain that and how that is structured, because they were asking us about the contract with ELS. And I said, well, that's the first problem, is there is no contract with ELS, and explained it all. And even referred them to the FAQ that we sent the community last month, where we also explained it to the entire community. So they seem to be happy with that answer. So, and that was probably the lengthiest question that we had to answer. Everything else was about the mission and what we could do better and typical questions like that. And I thought Heather and I handled that pretty well. They certainly seem to have enjoyed the experience and were very appreciative of our time. So I think Heather and I represented the school and the board well. So thank you, Ms. Heather.
Thank you for letting
All
me.
right. Item number 7 is our administration and staff report from the Jacob Colander.
Thank you, Chair Molina. I appreciate it. Thank you all for this evening. So I will sort of backtrack just a moment on the learning celebration, because the teachers were very stressed about it, and so we didn't end up being able to focus on that. But there is something I would like to celebrate, if you're okay with me sharing my screen for just a moment.
No,
Absolutely.
we don't want you to celebrate. No.
Please do. Please do. Please do.
Excellent. So what you're seeing is the art show on display at the Range Cafe in Bernalillo. This is all Explore Academy K-12 art. And this was something that we started working on, and it was actually, the genesis of it was a parent who it was something that was stemming over from when we were sort of knocked out of the state fair. We used to do a display at the state fair, and that didn't happen. And so we had a parent who reached out to me and said, what can we do? And she connected us to Mary Jo, who is the art curator for the Range Cafe. So I work with her and with her art teachers to be able to say, well, what can we do to get sort of a rotating art show in the Range Cafes? I think that's the last picture I've got, in the cafes, so that people can see what our students are doing. I asked Katia to put this out on our social media to advertise, because I still consider this to be, I consider anything where we can get our name as a school out there, and especially when it's by showcasing the work that our students do, that's the best. And so to be able to walk into a room at a place that is full of diners, and this room is covered in K-12 art, and you can see kind of on the bottom left of these particular images, that little white card that indicates the artist, and they all say Explore Academy K-12. So I was very excited to see it. My wife and I went up for a spontaneous dinner on Saturday to eat and to take a look at the art there. And I'm trying to get it spread so that people can go also check it out. I think it's a great partnership in the sense that I want the Range to feel like, on the one hand, we're helping some customers head their direction who want to go see their kids' art on display. And in turn, our kids are getting the pride of being able to see that their stuff is not just on a wall in a hallway at a school, but is actually out there where the general public is seeing it, next to other displays of art from professional artists that is for sale for some buku money. So I was very proud of that, and I wanted to share that with you guys, because unfortunately we couldn't get the teacher here this evening, but I didn't want us to go without some kind of celebration.
Well, thank you, Jake. That is awesome. That is fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Some of those pieces were stunning.
Can we buy the student art?
I think that would be so cool. I don't think I actually saw any prices on them, but what a boon it would be for a kid to receive an offer for a piece of art. I think that would be really special for them.
That would be.
And do you know how long it's going to be on display there?
She said what she said is probably about a month or a little longer. So I'm probably imagining that end of February is probably when it'll come down. I think it went up about a week ago. So I can imagine till the end of February.
Okay.
When it will
I'm
be
gonna
up
have to take my lady to breakfast out there one day. Check it all out. This is the Range in Bernalillo.
That's correct. Yes, it's the one. It's the only one that they have. It sounds like that's got its own art gallery set aside within the restaurant. It was kind of awkward because it also doubles as the break room for the staff. So I come walking in with a big cheesy smile and my phone out, And there's the staff with their forks and knives and pancakes. And I'm like, sorry guys, but I'm taking some pictures because and I just told them who I was and took some pictures of that around, but they were very gracious to work with us in that way. And our hope is that the other range cafes do kind of have some rotating art. And I had talked
they
to
do.
Mary Jo about it. If it can't go into Bernalillo because you've got other displays up, can we have maybe, 1/4 of a section of a wall at a different one just for a few choice pieces, so that we kind of feel like there's sort of always something out there. And she's happy to work with us on that. She was great to work with and talk to.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Thank you for that. Thank you so much. That's awesome.
Excellent. Very good. So kind of going down, we're at the point now where the intent to return to staff has gone out. And so we've identified, of course, if there are staff that we are intending to not renew a contract, those are starting to get sifted. But I think this is something we had spoken of before. So sort of address one thing that Martha had brought up. I think a step in the right direction for us, which we discussed, and I just want to make sure I get the thumbs up as we start really getting into the meat of things, is that I know that our traditional pattern had been to project an expected student enrollment, which projected how many staff I would have to hire to keep our student teacher, our class maximum at the right number, and we would hire accordingly. And then everybody sat on pins and needles in October to see if we would meet it or if we'd have to cut staff. So I think what I would like to do is, last year we ended the year about 1,350 students. We are at about 1,350 students right now. And so I would like to hire based on that number, with the intent of recruiting and drawing in for a max of 1,500, I think, or 1,550, something like that. And just sort of, and let the teachers know, because I'm meeting with the staff on the 21st of February, next Friday, because I would like the staff to know that they should anticipate a couple of changes in our messaging. The first one is that as we talk with parents in our upcoming informational and orientation sessions, we will probably not advertise an 18 max cap on a class size, because that may not in fact hold true in terms 1 and 2. And I would hate a parent's first exposure to Explore Academy be what looks like us reneging on a promise we made about a cap, when really what we're trying to do is allow that student population bubble in the first quarter to settle by 40th day. And then if we've got staff that we need to hire to accommodate a larger student body population, we can do so at that time. We did not have any issues being able to find staff within that first semester. I think some teachers get to new sites and realize at the end of a quarter, I mean, they do it with our school too, realize at the end of a quarter, not quite a fit. So that's what I would like to do moving forward, in which case our presentations to parents will change, because we will take that magic 18 number out of the presentation and sort of talk small class size, but really shift the emphasis of our discussion to rigor and content and flavor, as opposed to class size. And that way teachers will know in preparation for quarter one that their classes may be larger than they are used to, because we're trying to keep them from sitting the whole first quarter worried about whether or not newly hired staff are going to be able to stay. So that's a question for you guys. I'm just interested in your thoughts on that, and if that's okay to proceed with both in messaging and practice moving forward.
Martha, Heather, Aaron?
I mean, I think that's fair, just because, it's better than the other thing that we've faced. So I think that's fair. Can I just ask a question? I'm just putting
Sure.
it out there. What about hiring teachers on a part-time basis with the potential of full-time? Is that an option, or is that too out there?
It's an option. I think the staff, the teachers that would take a position like that where they don't feel secure that it's a long-term option for them, might be I don't want to make this sound bad, but it may be teachers who are kind of desperate for a job versus those who are feeling this is the place I want to settle. So I definitely think it's an option, and I don't want to intend this to mean that classes are going to balloon to like 25. It just may not be 18. It might look more like 20, 19 or 20 kids per class, and then we will budget intending to keep that 16 to 18 max within a classroom. That's how we'll build it. But in Q1, it may look more like 20 in a class instead. And I don't want anyone to look around and count, which we've had teachers do, to say, I've got a 19th kid, I can't take them. I don't want that to be their mentality. I think we can talk about it as we discuss our marketing plan. We have a meeting set for that on Friday. We can certainly talk about if there's a chance to do part-time, not part-time, short-term hires, I think.
And what
that,
about,
yeah.
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I don't know, like, just to see if that was, I don't even know how that would look, but
Sure.
what are teachers saying about this? How do they feel about, if is anyone opposed to the 19, 20, 21 students, or?
That is something that I will discuss with them on Friday of next week. So that has not come out. I didn't want to say it and then come to a board meeting and have you guys uniformly thumbs down it and have them have the risk of creating tension for no reason. So I think if the board is supportive of looking at that as a way to curb the repetition of RIF risk, because this year, I mean, I think back in October, one thing that we discussed in our marketing thing is we could avoid the RIF, but in avoiding the RIF, that's why we dipped into that bond covenant, is that we could have RIFed some teachers, and I think we had room to be able to do it with one or two teachers. I think we could have, and it would have, to a degree, saved us on the long run, but we preferred instead to negotiate within that bond covenant arrangement to see if we could avoid it and just dip into it a little bit. I think what this would do is take the stress out that needs to be the course of conversation. Because I would love to find us at a space on the 40th day to say, we need to hire 5 more teachers and start the hiring process then. And we do have several teachers that look like they're licensing through either micro-credentialing, finalizing PATH programs or OBLE programs. There's several of them that are in that pathway that are our EAs. And there's a part of me that kind of wants to, in the homegrown mentality say, can we have an EA like that starts the year as the person in the classroom when they are already set to graduate, be licensed and credentialed within that first quarter. And there's sort of it just staves off hiring potentially, because that was one of the criticisms that we had this year as well, is that part of the reason that our budget was being hit is our hiring practice, and some of the raises we gave to staff just ballooned a bit what that amount of our SEG that was going towards salaries did. So I don't know, maybe you'll see me in March with tomato stains on me still from staff throwing them at me when I say it to them. My impression from the few people I've spoken to is that they will find it a relief to feel like they're gonna trade off a little bit better job security in exchange for some more students for that first quarter. That's my impression, but I've only ran that idea past 2 or 3 people on the campus that I trusted to not say anything until I had come to you guys.
And easy to convince. It affects the whole school culture when you have a RIF, right? So easy to convince even a long-term employee who knows they're going to be coming back, that others won't be cut is really important. But Jake, I wanted to ask, in the marketing, couldn't you do like an average overall, like an average like somehow know that I don't know what that looks like marketing, but an average, because eventually that is our goal, is to stay under 18, right?
Sure.
But that even explaining what you just explained to parents, that the first couple terms might be based on enrollment. Like if people aren't, it's all based on enrollment, right? So
Yeah.
if we don't have enough enrollment, it might be 20 until we get settled out, right? I mean,
Sure.
I think it's fair to say that somehow I think it still needs to be communicated that our goal is to keep it below 18, even though it may go above in the first couple terms.
And I think in terms of how we have messaged in the past, we have said, because this is how it ran when students were signing up for classes, once a class hit 18, it closed. And so we were able to say with relative confidence, class sizes were capped at 18. And I think the language of our goal as a school is to maintain small class sizes. It avoids us having to put a number to it that feels like we've somehow broken that agreement with incoming parents in that first term or two.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think typically APS classes are usually larger than 20, aren't they? Around 23 to 25. So I think we can still, if you want to play with semantics, you could talk about low class size still.
Yeah, and some are 30 or 35.
Oh, easily,
Right.
easily.
Yeah.
Yeah, the last school I taught at was average of 32 to 35 per class.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think it's just we had embedded a number that I think I'm
Okay.
essentially saying I would like to remove the number, use the phrase small class sizes. And then internally our goal when we talk to teachers is we want to get you here, but I don't want to do it. Because and in this year we really said actually an ideal class size is 14 to 16. And that's what we were really trying to get to. But we in turn said in order to get there, we have to have this number of teachers in each department, which is how we did our hiring over the summer. And then that came back to bite us when we weren't hitting those numbers. So I think we can still project out that goal for a 14 to 16 is our ideal class size, but just shift how we do the bubble hiring in response to that. Do it in October as opposed to in July.
It sounds good to me.
And I've expressed that I really don't have an appetite in a year to have the RIF conversation again. I really would like to avoid that. So I think if we shift that hiring, and now we still aim for awesome enrollment and get those numbers down to that 15-ish average, 15, 16 class size. I think that's absolutely brilliant. And I'll bring up my question when we hit the marketing section. So I think we still aim for that, but we plan much more conservatively so that we're not having that RIF conversation, or we're dipping into promises that we've made our bond holders and all of that jazz. Pardon me, I'm really not wanting to play that song again because I've done it every year pretty much since I've been on the board, and we need to change the process and the approach. So I'm all in.
Okay, excellent. But and of course, as you said, all of us have the goal of making sure we can hit those ideal class sizes. I just don't want to hire in.
Right.
I would much rather hit the 40th day and go, wow, we can hire 5 teachers than hit the 40th day and again go, how many do we have to cut? Because as Karen said, even when you RIF one, there's a ripple effect because everyone suddenly feels insecure about their positions. In fact, one of the concerns that we had back in January was if students leave in that semester break between December and January, does that mean we risk riffing a teacher in March? And Karen was on a meeting with me with some of the staff at the elementary school where that question was brought up. If we lose kids in that semester changeover, does that affect? So they even feel insecure into the second semester, whether they can keep their jobs based on enrollment. And I would like to get that off of their stress levels if we can.
And you all know that the enrollment number is the 40-day, so it won't change.
Right.
Yeah, but the fact that they
But they're worried.
suspect that something could happen is human nature, and if we could help remove that, I'm all for it. Absolutely. But you're right. But they don't process like that. They look at how many heads and how many butts are in seats and start to question, oh my goodness. So, and that's a fair human emotion to have as an employee. So
Absolutely. Okay, then that conversation will happen with staff on next Friday. And I will for sure report back to all of you next month, kind of how that went, or if something big comes up, I'll email Chair Molina and just go FYI, this is what happened at the Friday meeting, and then we can share accordingly. For enrollment and marketing, as I mentioned, I think part of our shifting in language will be to take that number out, focus on mission and rigor, because that seems to be also one of those discrepancies between anticipation and reality. Our students coming in hearing 22-day terms, small class sizes, but not hearing rigorous academic environment, and they get hit. And that is, I think, some of that early wave of students that bail at the end of the first term as they find it challenging. And so ensuring that especially within the orientation sessions, we've gone from what used to just be informational sessions and then a summer catalog night to informational sessions and a meet and greet to now informational sessions and orientation, because I think the team collectively felt that parents too many parents were skipping the optional meetings and then being surprised in August with things that they wouldn't have been surprised with had they attended one of those meetings. So removing the option from it and just saying, if you're a new parent to explore, we're going to have these series of orientation meetings. You can pick one to attend and we can cover it. And that will be part of the focus is on this. This is what you should anticipate in terms of the rigor and the challenge. Anthony Branch, who's the principal at the mid-high, as you know, changed some of his format for the informational sessions to include student presenters. And that's actually been great because the parents have been able to ask the kids based on what you have experienced as a student here. How much homework are you getting? How much time are you spending? They're able to get those from students. And so I think I want to keep that path of conversation. The K-5 presentation as well, I sat through in that informational session for parents. And I would love to streamline those. That's some of the work that I want to do, because some of them feel like they kind of start at a little bit out of left field. And so I'd like those presentations to be fixed up for our parents so that they're really understanding what the mission of the school is before they then get into how we execute the mission. And that's just something that working on from our end on how we're marketing to parents. And right now, I just checked before this section, we have 779 applications to the school as of this point. We are a month out from our lottery, so that feels small to me compared to previous years. But like I said, I have that marketing meeting Friday with that team because that feels small to me, and I don't know because I didn't track this as well last year as I should have in terms of where were we by February in terms of applications. It's a lot still, but for some reason that number is hitting me as being a little bit small. And I did look at who is applying, and we are still short as typical on 10, 11, and 12. So part of that marketing meeting Friday will be how do we target advertisement to that population? Like, I think we need to think critically about how to draw in applicants for those upper grade levels. I'm hoping that the Explore Horizons ads that are going out and things that we're setting up is attractive to older students because it mostly is for them. But that's where we're at for enrollment marketing. And I know Chair Molina, you said you had a question for this section.
Yeah, I'm really interested in getting an update from our director of marketing on the March meeting, if at all possible, to see what the plan is going into the end of spring, summer, and fall. I'd love to have a look ahead. And if you're going to have this meeting in the coming week or so, then I think it would be great to see what the strategies are for not only just this coming school year, but the following school years. We should be marketing now for the 26-27 year. We've got to be thinking that far ahead and getting that message out there, because kids in 7th and 8th grade and their families are already starting to search out where they want to land their freshman year. And because 10, 11, and 12 has consistently been our more challenging grades to fill, and I'm hoping our gym situation helps fix that, and the other initiatives that you've put in place, Jake, with regards to the dual credit and all of the mentoring and all of that really becomes very attractive. But I would love to see from our marketing director what the plan is with specifics, right? And even a timeline or a project management type chart, something that shows us what's going to happen and when would be really valuable.
Excellent. I will invite her to attend our March meeting when I meet with her Friday.
Perfect.
Excellent. In terms of facilities, as you guys, those of you who were there yesterday at the Galton campus, or no, you went to Masthead. That's where you had the meeting. I apologize. We have a giant plywood wall up in our flex room at the Galton campus because they have officially sealed off the area where they're going to begin the construction. Are we about to get a view? Okay, we're going to let Chair Molina go on a tour, and he's going to show us this giant plywood wall. You muted yourself, so the walking narration is not happening. You are muted, sir.
Okay, so right behind me, right here.
There it is. Yeah. And that will be where they're beginning kitchen construction the 13th and 14th, which are the 2 term break days prior to our spring break, is when they are officially going to start heading into it, because the intent is to get as much done as they can from the 13th till students are back after spring break. So thanks for the tour. That was a good visual addition to it. But so that kitchen, and hopefully once that gets up and running, that will help. Our kitchen team was very gracious. They put on a great spread for our visitors from the CSD, yogurts and chips and string cheese and fresh fruit and things for them to make them feel very invited. So it added a nice touch to their visit to our school to have Genuine provide that. And then similarly, waiting on the gym update. Last I heard was 2 weeks ago, and it was the architectural firm has, like, the relevant parties have finally agreed now to the mediation. So waiting for that to take place. The pending meeting was first week or so of February, and that's where we're at right now. So I don't have further information on whether that mediation took place, but that's where we're at. The mediation needs to happen so that then they can determine, and money can start flowing in to pay off the people that we need to pay and to start getting their work done on the gym roof. As we mentioned earlier, right now, in terms of those retention efforts, dual credit for us, we feel is going to be a big catch, because being that we haven't done the deep dive in how to ensure dual credits are done properly. What would we need to budget if we want to say we're going to go full tilt in paying for student textbooks? What does that look like? That's a pending meeting that I have with a dual credit team also on my Friday meetings, as you can tell, are adding up, because I have a dual credit meeting with them as well, so that we can talk about boards and expenses associated with it. But the response from parents already has been significant, of parents emailing us going, can my son get dual credit? Can my daughter get dual credit for classes they're doing? And so I think that was a good addition to the Explore Horizons, to include really opening up the dual credit opportunities for students. Because like I said, I'm already seeing good feedback on that. Our Q2 feedback, we received that information right at the end of January. So I have met with the principals and provided their feedbacks in addition to this one. And I just want to kind of share, very broadly speaking, our parents were extraordinarily supportive. I mean, the few things that parents identified in our Q2 feedback that they felt were growth areas for the school was also oddly positive. It was like, we want to see Mr. Branch out in the parking lot more often because we miss seeing him out there. So kind of a critique, but kind of a compliment. The biggest trend in parent feedback, just so that the board is aware, really has to do with teacher thoroughness of feedback and timeliness of feedback. That was their biggest critique. It had nothing to do with the administration or educational model of the school. It was either weekly progress reports aren't giving them the information they need, or feedback provided to students isn't sufficient enough for them or for their children to know what direction to take. Now, when I say that was the majority of the feedback from parents, we're talking maybe 7 to 9 parents mentioned that on that Q2 survey, which is not a great percentage of parents, but it was the most consistent of the feedback. So I've already addressed it with Mr. Branch and with the instructional coach there. And they have already done a professional development on it. Their professional development last Friday was on professionalism at the school and how do we continue to be strong professionals. They have posters hung up in the staff lounge of decisions that they have made or suggestions that they've made around it, one of which includes that consistency and clarity of feedback for students. So already seen, addressed, PD being provided in response to that. And then finally, site visit. That's my final point for this evening. That was such a great team. I felt like overall, the 3 that came to visit our schools were inquisitive, but also very positive about things that they saw. And the highlight of the exit component of it, just to share with you guys, is Greg, who's I know well, and was, if you had gone to the panel for the board, you know Greg. He said, sitting in the high school student panel, he said they were not only talking about the standards in the classroom, but they even talked about how the standards in the classrooms are weighted differently So they knew what they had to focus on as a priority based on weight. And they said they never sit on student panels where kids are talking about standards in the classroom. In addition to projects and flavor and all the other things that are typical for students, the fact that they said they had high school students articulating their standards, why they were important, talking about teachers teaching standards and how weights worked on the standards. They just said that was really a phenomenal showing on behalf of our students. So all in all, I think it was extraordinarily positive. We did not get much in terms of conclusion from their visit because a lot of it is pending further information. But the things they could conclude all said that they said that we are meeting the expectations for those. So I'll let Karen join if she has other reflections on that final component.
Thanks, Jake. No, I had put it down on mine too because I just want to commend the school, and Jake and his team really did a phenomenal job. The teachers in the classroom, I mean, they saw the comments that we received at the exit interview were very positive and very, one thing they did share that's kind of, I thought was well said, is that their visit is primarily to see that the mission and education program is being implemented. And they saw engaged students and student-led classrooms and basically saw everything that our model is set out to do. So they were very impressed. They were very impressed with our student, as he mentioned, focus group and teacher focus groups. So it was really great. The compliance pieces, of course, at this point, as Jake mentioned, that what they basically most of the indicators are more data needed, no issues identified, meaning they didn't find any problems, but we have till the end of the year for somebody to report a problem. As an example, our licensure discrepancies, they do licensure discrepancy reports regularly through PED, and we've taken care of all that because Jake and I work very closely with Bev on making sure folks are licensed and appropriately. So they had no issue right now, but if that something came up later and we don't address it, it could adjust our marks. But as far as what they saw, they were very impressed and they felt like we met. I mean, we didn't have a McKinney-Vento poster in the lobby. Was the only thing they negatively pointed out. And unfortunately, there really is a McKinney-Vento in the lobby, and somehow it was no longer there. So we got it up, and I don't know, that might be a working to meet for that indicator. But more importantly, our counselor that handles the McKinney-Vento for students experience homelessness is doing a great job and has the students identified, has a poster in her office, had it in the lobby. If that's the biggest thing they find, I'm really happy. So kudos
Yeah.
all around. Um, Staff files, student files they didn't find a thing. So that was not in compliance. So I'm very happy. I'm very proud of all of you. So thank you.
So it seems like this was a good visit in comparison to the one that occurred last year where it was more confrontational, right? Am I thinking of the same visit that occurred last year where we had some complaints going the other way?
Yes.
That's
Yes,
correct.
sir.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yep.
That is
Yeah,
correct, but they weren't the same people.
correct. Yep.
Right.
They were not the same people, and a lot of the issues were the way that our board members were quizzed and questioned and treated. That was not the case this year at all. This is, I think, my third one. I missed last year, unfortunately, but I think this was the third one I've participated on, and Heather's first, and we both left feeling pretty good about it. So, and they were very appreciative of us coming down, visiting with them, all of that. So it was indeed a different experience, Aaron, and one that I was more accustomed to. When I got the feedback last year from Martha and Dottie, I was really taken aback, and addressed Karina about it at the conference. So even though we sent a letter to them and all of that, she and I visited about that as well. So I'm not sure if any of that had an impact on this year, but it was much more amicable overall.
And I like it when they're more collaborative because I
Yeah.
don't like when it's confrontational. It's just like, well, no one's getting like everyone's going to dig their feet in and try and prove the other one right instead of being collaborative. So
Agreed.
that was good.
And the public education department, after all, is in the area of education, and we want to be uplifting and supportive and not, yeah. Anyway, I agree with you, Aaron.
Agreed.
So
Very
All
good.
right.
So that's all I had for my section.
Thank you, good man. Thank you so very much.
Thank
It
you.
seems like you're doing better. You've healed up from last month because you were pretty wrecked at our
I
last.
was I was pretty wrecked, but I am healed up, and it was. I will just say in general, it is great to be on campus. If you don't get to visit our campus often, like just the energy of our students, the teachers that we've got on either campus. I walk on our elementary campus, and it's just such a pleasure to be there. I go to Galton. It's great to be there. It's a different vibe, different energy, obviously, because it's a high school, but just was very proud of all the work that, and our principals did an amazing job as well. They were both, I can tell you, nail bitingly nervous because this was their first CSD visit that either of them were a part of as principals. And I think Karen would probably agree with me that I think once they got going in that initial interview component Monday morning, they found their feet and they were able to speak well to the different programs and things we have going on at our school. And I almost felt like we could have just kept going to talk about how we meet the educational expectations our families have of us as a charter school. We could have kept digging and digging and digging to the point where I think they were kind of like, okay, next question, we get it, you're rocking, so let's next question. And that was my impression of it. And so I do think it went very well. But thank you all.
I should have asked earlier, Heather, what was your impression of that event being it as your first time being involved? It doesn't want to unmute.
There we
There you
go.
go.
Okay, I think I got it. I kept pressing the button and it wasn't doing anything. Sorry.
Right?
No, I enjoyed the visit. It wasn't, there wasn't a confrontational air to it at all. They were asking clarifying questions if they had any misunderstandings with what we were saying, or if they wanted extra information. I thought it was good on both sides.
I concur. Thank you. Wonderful, Mr. Colander. Thank you so very much. I believe we're on item B of number 7, the general updates and reminders. And I think
So-
that's you, Ms. Karen.
it's going to be very quick. I don't think we need to spend time on the Power School data breach, but Chair Molina had asked me to share what we've communicated about the data breach. And so I have provided copies of the 3 communications that went out to staff and families. Basically, bottom line is that the last communication was that Power School was going to provide free credit monitoring for teachers and identity protection for students, and families need to go to the website and sign up. And so that's in summary of what's going on, but I did want you to know that though we didn't communicate it very well to the board, we have been taking care of business on the backside of communicating with staff and families every step of the way as we got information from Power School. So that's on your agenda, linked if you want to review it. You can see what went out. Some of your parents, or most of you are. So you probably have seen some, but anyway, that's there per request. Public records request, I just wanted to share with you that we did get a public records request for some information regarding your former head administrator, and as well as a case number that was involving a teacher who allegedly pushed a student. She's no longer employed at the school. Unrelated to that incident, the school was behind the teacher in terms of the accusations provided, but I think that this particular requester had seen that that charge or that lawsuit was against the school and that the head administrator at the time. And so because his name was attached to it, they wanted information about that case unrelated to the recent allegations. So anyway, that's been provided. I just wanted to update the board on that. And we did have the case documents reviewed by the attorney to redact as appropriate before we release those records. So just wanted to share that with you. We talked about the school site visit, and then the standing board policies link is on the agenda. Chairman, I did put one policy up late, so if we want to skip the only governing council business you had for tonight, I'm fine with that. moving into the next section, it is, I did put a thing about contract requirements, which are really requirements per PED, but we want to be clear for new hires what's required, but we can wait till March if you prefer.
So I did get a peek at it earlier or later this afternoon. It's a 1-page document. And I suppose I should move to review and possibly vote on the contract requirement document that is in our policy manual. And then we can open it up for discussion, including deferring it to next month. A second, please.
I'll second.
Thank you. So this is a 1-pager. My question, if I may be so bold, is how much of this is required by statute or law, labor law, PED law, any of that regulation? How much of this language in here is required? Because I don't know what the answer to that question.
Almost all of it.
Okay, that's what
So
it looked like. I just wasn't sure.
it depends though. Like your salary schedule, I should put for teachers. I should probably add something about, because you added a salary schedule for education assistants as well. And theirs is
Yes, we
not
did.
on degree, but theirs is, I should probably add a sentence here on that. So I'm glad you asking me, because clarifying questions are always good. But bottom line is, if you have a salary schedule that is based on education and experience, then you must have official transcripts and verifications of employment. And your salary schedule for teachers is not only level, licensure level, which I should put here, which is obvious, that's required by law. Licensure level, educational degree beyond a bachelor's, because a bachelor's needed to get a teaching degree in this state, and years of teaching experience. So we have if you recall, the salary schedule is BA plus 15, BA plus 30, BA plus 45, or BA plus masters, or whatever. So if they have above a master's, they need to provide, well, we didn't used to say that. We just said they need to provide official transcripts. I'm proposing a little bit of a change here in that if it's beyond the bachelor's, we need official transcripts, because to get the license, they had to have the bachelor's. So we don't need to go there. And then the VOEs for the teaching experience. On the EAs, it's based on their licensure level and years of education assistant experience. So in the instant of education assistants, to get a level 3, they have to have certain amounts of college credits. So we don't go beyond that. There's the level 1, level 2, level 3. Level 1's a new EA. Level 2 is a sort of a, you've been around and working hard, and the school leader can support a increase to level 2. And level 3 is educational experience. So we have several level 3 EAs because they have college education, and they get a level 3 license. So that puts them to that column. But then we also have it going down by years of experience. So our folks who stay with us can keep moving up, of course. So, but yes, so if that's okay, because that's a little bit of a change in, well, primarily the change is this part beyond bachelor's, because I don't want to have to make people get a official transcripts for a bachelor's degree when the license requires. But other than that, then going down, official transcripts are required. We can't do a copy or an unofficial copy if we're giving them credit for those, that coursework. They have to be submitted electronically or hard copy directly to the school, not through them. It's required. Verifications of employment must be sent by completed by the prior school, same submission practices. And then this is also by the teacher cost index, and the when they come and review our experience, the teaching experience must be actual teaching experience. And then there's a little flexibility here. So this part right here about how many days do we count as a year of experience is up to the board. The board had voted previously for 130 days or more to count as a year. The rest is based on the teacher cost index of the PED. It has to be full time. You can't count half years. You can't combine half years. Like if they taught half a year in Gallup and half a year in Albuquerque, you can't combine those. Unless it was in the same school or district for the year. And then we have opted to include and allow experience. This is not required, but if it is allowed, you have to have it noted that if they've taught at a secondary, post-secondary level, or had some job sharing, or taught overseas, we can count those as teaching experience. So that is something that's not required, but you had voted on previously. And then contract adjustments, we're going to prepare all contracts with what we have on file. It used to be that at one time in Explore's history, they would give credit for years of teaching based on a resume. And then we get dinged for it if the financial auditors come, because that's not proof of doing it. And I could put anything on my resume, frankly. So it has to be paperwork with the school. And if we don't have it, we're going to write the contract with the base salary, but we are giving them till October 1st to get all the documents in. And I think going forward, what we'd like to do is at October 1st, update all the contracts that need to be updated rather than piecemealing it here and there. And it is retroactive to the first day of the contract if they get it in by October 1st. Of course, employees hired during after the start of school, October, they might be hired in October. So we give them 60 days. And then paperwork received after the deadline, pushed it over to the second page, after October 1st, or the 60 days if they were hired during the school year, will not be reflected. Any increases in pay will not happen till the next school year. So most of that is just standard practice. The October 1st cutoff was decided in the past. So not much is different from before. The only change from what we had talked about or done in practice before is this beyond, specifically saying beyond bachelor's. But with that, I stand for questions. I don't know, I've reviewed the page for you.
I don't know how laborious this would be and or how value added this would be, and I don't want to make extra work, but for the items on this document and any other document that has supporting documentation, like it's from the PED or it's from the, you've mentioned it earlier, any of those documents, would it be wise or smart or whatever to put little end note numbers at the ends of those sentences where folks could go down to the bottom of the document and go, oh, this isn't just the board's dictum, it's actually supported by another organization, another requirement outside of Explore Academy. I don't want to make extra work, but because it was hard to see, or it's hard to know which ones we control versus the requirements and elements that we do not control.
Sure.
So-
And I hear your point. In most policies, I do try to put a reference to the policy, to the statutes and regulations that are being referenced. I don't know offhand if it is even in statute or regulation, or if it's just auditing financial, but I'll have to find out where it actually lives. But I know from audits, including your financial audit, that if they review staff files and they're not official transcripts and VOEs and you're paying them based on that, it is a finding. So I'll have to find out where that reference is, but I hear what you're saying. I did put a link to the teacher cost index about this
Yeah,
part.
thank you. That's what I was trying to
Um,
get my hands around.
But in terms of why official transcripts and years of service are required, I'm going to have to find the resource, but I'm happy to do a little digging and get that. In most of your policies at the top, I have put in brackets the statutes. As I'm going through these, I put the statutes and the regulation
Okay.
numbers, and can even link to the New Mexico one source that has that information as we proceed to approve each one. I'm sorry, I did not look up where that is. I just happen to know that it is. So but
It just hit me when I was going through this, as if we should have a little end note or footnote marker, number 1, 2, 3, like you see in most of our college texts, right? Is you could
yeah,
go to the
sure.
bottom of the page or the bottom of that chapter and
Yeah, yeah.
see the references. Again, if it's
It's
too
pretty easy to
laborious,
do. I just need to add a footnote and stick the thing down here, but I don't know offhand to do that for you on these, but
okay.
I will work to that end.
It, just an idea, if some of you think that that's absolutely silly or not a good use of time, it's just a thought and a suggestion.
No, I think it's a
This
good
is what's
suggestion.
going to people who are hired, is that correct?
Well, it would become a policy, and so then, yes, we already share this.
Right.
We've already been sharing this with people, without the revisions I discussed today. But
And
yes, the intent is that this would be a policy. And most of our policies are driven by statute. It just helps to have it in a policy so we don't have to go search for the statutes. Our
Right.
school leaders and staff don't have to go searching statutes. They can just look at our policies. It's a little bit easier.
Yeah.
But
the
I
reason
think,
sure. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead.
I was gonna say the reason I ask is to sort of second what Chairman Lena is suggesting, in that what we tend to get from teachers are often conversations about, well, this seems like a rule that just your school does, because at other schools I've been at, and they fill in the blank with whatever they want to claim.
Right.
And so it's much easier with the staff member to say, is this a thing that just, I mean, I was asked the question worded this way from a teacher. Is there something within your charter that says you do not have to pay a differential for those who are subbing a classroom? And I said, do we have a policy that says we don't have to pay a differential for subs? No, but like I had to explain kind of how that works, but it's because I think teachers dip their toes into what they experience at other schools, and they don't know whether what they're seeing there is statute or whether that's just a school practice. So for us to label our statutes within this, I think would be great in terms of calming some of those conversations down, especially with staff who want to try to, I don't want to use the word hoodwink because that sounds nefarious, but want to try to negotiate. Yeah, let's say negotiate. Leave it. They want to try to negotiate stuff because they think that we're making rules up.
And that we
Right.
could change it. Yeah, I hear it, and I will work towards that. I can only tell you right now that I know that the transcripts and the years of service are required for financial audit, but I have to go find out where that might be documented.
And
Happy to do it.
what a great question, because if we're getting dinged on it, that ding needs to be founded in some sort of regulation, requirement,
Sure.
law, whatever it is. So super quick story. My wife is an early childhood educator guru, and the state, the city, the licensing folks will come into a childcare center and start saying, "Oh, this is out of compliance." And my wife will say, "Will you please show me where that is in the licensure and the documentation?" And when they can't bring it up, when they can't find it, she said, "You might not
Doesn't
like
exist.
what we do, but it's not a finding. Thank you very much." So whether the inspector, the evaluator doesn't particularly like something, doesn't mean that it's out of compliance. And she really challenges that. So it's just, I think that's great that she does that. I wish more folks would push back when they're challenged to say, okay, show me where that's written so that, one, I understand it, I can read it, and then I can make it part of the fabric of my school. So, because I think a lot of times people's experiences or chutzpah or whatever gets in the way of, if it's a finding, show me why that's a finding. Show me where that's documented, saying that these requirements are here. So just quick story on that.
And to that point, I mean, if you have a salary schedule, if you didn't have a salary schedule that's based on educational degree and years of experience, you don't have to do this at all. But it's driven by your salary schedule.
Yep.
But I will
Yep.
find out where it's referenced, and good point. Generally speaking, when I used to do site visits, that's what I got all the time. Where does it say I have to do that? You don't have to tell me. Well, here's where it says where I have to do that, which is why I know most of the statutes that relate to charter schools. But good point. I will see where that's at. And as you see, I put the teacher cost index because for that same reason. Anyway,
So fellow board members, should we wait to have that document filled out a little bit more before we put it on a vote? We can vote to defer to a later meeting if we'd like.
I would like to vote to defer. I think we're headed in the right direction with it. I just think that if we want to make those changes that we discussed, it would be better to vote later.
Okay.
Seems like
right.
we'd have to vote twice on it too, like vote now, and then if there were substantial changes, although we know that they're not going to be too substantial, but it'd be
Yeah.
better for us to have the final product that's going in the policies.
Right.
Agreed. Well, then, let us vote. Let's do a roll call vote to defer this contract requirement policy approval to a future meeting, possibly March, maybe April. It just depends on how much bandwidth Karen has to get that one done. And then, so let's vote on that. And then I've got something to share with you all with regards to policies. So, Ms. Karen, would you please conduct a roll call vote?
Absolutely. Chair Molina,
Aye.
Aaron Hamilton,
Aye.
Heather Anderson,
Aye.
and Vice Chair Barrera.
I,
Perfect.
Motion passes 4-0. I think I can have it for March.
Wonderful. And then Karen and I are going to meet in the next couple of 3 weeks to go over all of the policies and kind of put them in an order for us to review so that we sort of have a conveyor belt, if you will, so that we're on track to look at everything. It's in a logical sense that we know what our homework is between meetings to read. So we will work on that and probably present it to you probably in an email or maybe at next month's meeting. We'll just show you what the process looks like so that we're on top of it, we're organized, and we're killing it. So that's the goal, everybody. Wonderful. Thank you so much. That was item number 8 on our agenda. It is time for board comments. Item number 9. Any board comments on just about anything, gang?
This doesn't have anything to do with our agenda. I just wanted to let you all know I am actually going to be out of town the second 2 weeks of June, the second and third week. So I won't be attending the charter school conference.
Okay. It's a good one. Maybe next year.
I would like to be able to go. We're just not going to, we'll be in Maine, so I can't.
Lucky you. That's awesome. Well, very good. Yeah, and that's in June. I want to say 10, 11, and 12, I believe. I think those are the dates or something akin to that. Not to toot horns or anything, but I got selected to do 2 presentations at the conference this year. One is with Dr. Kim Faulkner, who's one of the data gurus at the PED and CSD. We're going to come up. We're meeting tomorrow, as a matter of fact, to start outlining what our 90 minutes look like. So the sessions are now 90 minutes long and not 60 minutes long. My focus, what I'm going to really push, is making sure that boards know where to find data, how to interpret the data, and how to use those interpretations to make decisions on their schools, which is really that, and finances are the 2 biggest responsibilities of a charter school board. And I would like folks to not just look at the pretty charts when they see them on the wall and go, wow, we must be doing pretty good. And it happens all the time. And I even got that last year's conference when I did kind of a basic stats course in my 60 minutes. And folks are like, yeah, we, unless somebody tells us something is wrong, we assume everything is right. And that's a dangerous way to run a business or a school. So help to continue to start demystifying the data and all of that. And then the other one has to do with the roles and responsibilities of a president, vice chair, secretary, and treasurer of a board, and how to run an effective board meeting using Robert's Rules of Order. So I have 90 minutes to do that. So I am one of the presenters. I'm really, really looking forward to it. I had a blast last year, and I have a funny feeling I'm going to have another blast this year. So I was really tickled to have been selected to again present this year and represent our school, because that's pretty cool.
And may I just add, Chair Molina, that it was mentioned at our exit interview today that the chair of our board was going to be presenting. So it's well known, and you got very positive feedback from last year's presentation. So kudos to you as well.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I think we make the entire charter school system better if those of us who are in it contribute to the betterment of all of these charter schools. They all have missions. They all have a reason for existing to serve their communities. And if there's something our little community can do to influence the rest of our state and the students in the state, then I think we're all better off. So that's my motivation for putting my hat in the ring. And rumor has it that perhaps next year Jake and I will come up with a topic or two to present. So we were already chatting about that, and that would be an absolute blast. So for those of you who don't know, Jake and I actually co-taught at the University of Phoenix once upon a time. And some of my best experiences as an adult educator is when I got to teach with Mr. Colander. So if we can replicate that in a 90-minute session, that would be just magnificent. So we're already planning for the next conference coming up next year. So anyway, that's my motivation. Again, it's as honorable as I can make it, and it's a blast. So hopefully the rest of us on the board can try to make it this year, even if you can only make it one day. It's really neat to experience other board members, listen to what their comments are, what their questions are during the seminars. It's really, really very, very interesting. So highly encouraged if you can spare the time. I know this takes a bit of time already. So any other board comments about just about anything?
I have a question related to retention. So we were going to invite a marketing or the head of marketing. Do we have someone that's heading up like retention efforts?
Oh, good question.
I think that is more located at the campus level. So it's sort of tasked with the principals and myself, so the three of us, to look at it. Retention, and it's actually more of a 6-12 thing. Like I say the principals, but really our K-5 does not see the retention issues, and part of it's because they typically have a waiting list. So even if there are kids who leave, we've got kids to fill in. I think at the 6-12, some of the things that we've talked about, the Explore Horizons thing, the continuing with dual credit opportunities, the way that we're like some of those internal things we're discussing are all for the purposes of retention, but I definitely think it would behoove us to invite Mr. Branch and give us the homework assignment of he and I to meet together and have a conversation about retention efforts to share alongside marketing. So I am certainly happy to get him if you'd like that for next week as well, or the month after, whatever you prefer.
That was my request of potential future item, in addition to marketing, if we could look at the retention. And I know it's been a topic before on our board meetings, but I'd like to see the current one because it's like I was looking back up at your section, Mr. Colander, and use the word rigor. And I have two students at Explore, and they've both used that word often to describe why some of their classmates won't be returning next year. So I don't want to decrease it. That's why I like Explore Academy, because of the rigor. So I really like the communication that's going to be taking place with the parents beforehand of like, hey, this is the expectation. This isn't the run-of-the-mill school, public school or charter school in Albuquerque. This is rigorous. We're preparing them for the future. So I really like that, but just want to see kind of those retention efforts and maybe having that clear communication beforehand is what will retain folks. We're kind of, I don't want to use the word weeding out, but somewhat weeding out folks they're not in it for that.
No, I agree. And I think in the past when there's a degree to which small class sizes was like, that was the thing that parents were into. And so emphasizing it was great. But the way that message can sometimes carry is contradictory to the fact that it's a rigorous environment. So they show up, they see, okay, I got the small class, but I wasn't prepared for homework. I mean, we've had parents who will just say publicly, right? It's not necessarily even a rigor for Explore Academy. It's just, my kids don't do homework. That's family time. Why are you assigning homework? Just that expectation of how we do things and making sure that is more clear, because they were hearing the small class sizes loud and clear and not kind of the rest of it. But absolutely, I will invite Mr. Branch to join us at our March board meeting to talk retention efforts at the mid-high.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Outstanding. Always good to see Anthony. All right, last call for board comments. Man, we're rocking it. This is awesome. Fantastic. Well then, we will open it up for public comment. And I think we still have a public out there.
Nope,
Nope, no, we don't.
we have nobody.
All right, so public comment is opened and closed. And a reminder to everybody, our next board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, March 11th at 5:30 via Zoom. And I will hereby adjourn this meeting at 6:58 p.m. It is a joy, an honor, and a privilege to serve on this board with each and every one of you. Thank you so much for your continued service and willingness to participate in the leadership of this school. So thank you all so very much. Have a wonderful evening with your families.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good
Night,
night, everybody.
everybody.
Right.